Hello, it's Deborah from the attic, and today I'm delighted to say I have the latest Simon Says stamp card making kit. This is a kit from November 2021, and we're going to take a look through and then we're going to make 5 cards using just the contents of this kit. If you're new here, hi, welcome. You've got lots of catching up to do on my channel. There's loads and loads of videos, so please go and check out the playlist if you're interested in journal making or card making or my real French life here in the southwest of France. Or if you're in a hurry, try the coffee break tutorials because they're nice, quick, easy watches and they might inspire you while you sit down and have a cuppa. Please subscribe and do hit the like button when you enjoy a video. It really helps me to grow my channel and I appreciate all of your support. On with the kit. I've actually tipped everything out of the bag. I've had a quick sneaky peek and ta-da! This is what November looks like. So the first thing I want to show you are the nibbles. So this is something called Swiss Miss Marshmallow Hot Cocoa Mix. I've never had anything like this before, so I'm quite looking forward to trying that out, and I may well have a little sip while I'm making my cards, and also the lollipop. I love getting these little things, and that always goes to one side so that nobody else has it. It is just for me. This is the most beautiful, beautiful embossing folder. It's called Scandinavian Christmas, and on the reverse it gives you an idea of what sort of images you can expect to see when you emboss it onto cardstock. I think this is stunning. I'm really, really looking forward to playing with this one. There's a sheet of sentiment strips which are cut from card, and then you can attach them to your projects. We've got 2 envelopes. One is in cream and one is in soft navy, and it's always worth pointing out with these envelopes that they have this cover that you pull back and they are self-adhesive. You don't need to lick these envelopes. This is lovely. It's called a positively everything tool, and you've got this lovely little paw and the embossing on that side and a different embossing on the reverse. And I think that will be a nice match for a hot mug containing this drink. There are 6 sheets, and these are double-sided sheets, 6 by 6 inches square, of Scandi Christmas. Let me just quickly flip you through these. These again are just beautiful. There are so many different ways I can already think of to use these and to get the most out of each of these sheets of card. They're just lovely. And the other thing that I was really excited to see is this lovely 6 by 6 berries and leaves stencil. I am really looking forward to playing with that one. The stamp set is called Cozy Wishes. It's 6 by 8, and my eye was immediately drawn to this bit here, this little bird table. But there are so many other elements to this with the little birds and the snow and the little envelopes. There's so many different ways to use this stamp, and I'm looking forward to exploring some of those. And then we have the cardstock. We have 5 sheets of cardstock. We've got matte silver, cream, soft navy, midnight green and desert storm. Let's see what we can make with these. For my first card, I want to make something deceptively simple, which I think is in keeping with the sort of Nordic style. I've used the paper bag, I've folded it over because I want to use it as something soft underneath my piece of cardstock, and I've cut this down to 5.5 by 4 and 2 thingies. Yes, I'm better with metric, I'm not very good with imperial, but it's a standard card size. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of washi tape just to hold it down, because I don't want this to wiggle around too much, because I'm going to apply the stencil and then write or press through the stencil and try and get the impression to come out on the cardstock. And I'll use another couple of pieces of washi to now hold the stencil in place so that nothing will move. I've got a couple of these little tools. They've got rounded ball ends and they're going to be really helpful for pushing down through the design. So I'll get started. Okay, I've gone around all of the stencil and now I'm going to peel it back off the card and see what the effect is. Now that's quite nice. I've got a distress ink here, which is Picket Fence, and it's white. And I'm going to just try rolling it around the embossed areas, just to try and pick them out a little. I think it's better to do it with the flat ink pad rather than a brush, because the risk is that a brush would capture the flat areas as well as the embossed areas, and you wouldn't be able to pick it out so easily. I think that's about as much as I want to do. I've let this dry, and now I want to take an Emboss It pen. This is a clear pen, and it basically contains the sort of ink that you can use to colour over something or write something out, and then use embossing ink, or use embossing powder I should say, to highlight it. So I'm going to go over little sections of these just to add some shimmer, some little extra definition to some of the branches. I'm going to do this in sections so that I have time to add my embossing powder, heat set it, and then move on to the next section. The embossing powder that I'm using is from Wow, and it's called Under the Sea, and it will give me a lovely shimmery green sort of a finish. I've cut down my design now that it's been heat set, and I've glued it to the back of one of the green pieces of card from the kit, which I've cut down. And I've also embossed the Missing You sentiment from the stamp set with white embossing powder. And I've added a few little pieces of twine that go around the back of the top card, but they don't go under the bottom card, so it means that there is a complete border. And I've added some raised foam strips to the reverse of my sentiment. If I peel that away, I can position it exactly so that it is over the pieces of thread, so it won't have any interruption underneath and any sort of poking up from underneath of the additional twine, which is why I've put the foam layers at the top and the bottom, so it will just sit neatly over the threads. And all I have to do is try and get this in the centre. There it is, roughly centred, and that's my first card. For my next card, I'm going back to the stencil again. I've got it prepared over the top of a piece of base card from the kit. I'm using my Simon Says stamp brush from a previous kit, and I'm going to use two colours. I'm going to use Old Paper and Bundled Sage, and I'm using these just as two contrasting shades of colour to make the stencil pop a little bit. So I'm just going to very gently just go over all of it in one colour to begin with. I've used Old Paper to go over the whole stencil, and I'm going to use Bundled Sage just to go into the corners and around the edge to give it a sort of a vignette effect. This is always the exciting moment where you see if it's worked. And it has. I think that's given us a beautiful card base to work with. What I've done with this base is I've glued it to a blue background, and that is a nice match for the colours that I've chosen to colour in the lanterns. So I've stamped out 3 of these, I've coloured them in with the blue. I've also taken one of the sentiments that you can cut from the card, so this is what it looks like when it's white, but then I took some ink on a little brush and I just applied some colour over the top of that to take away the whiteness and help it to tone in more with the backgrounds in the lanterns, and that matches the background on the card. So everything ties together, everything speaks to each other in terms of the colours that have been used. The last thing I want to do with the lanterns is take the backing off these foam pads that I've put on the central lantern so I can stick that down. And I want it to slightly overlap the other two and be slightly proud of them. Like that. That gives it a nice little bit of dimension. And I'm going to take my black pen and I'm just going to make it look as if these lanterns dangle and they're tied with a string from the top of the card. It will give them a way of anchoring onto the card. And the other thing that I can do to make a greater use of the black is to add a very thin little border around the outside of my card using black pen, and I'm deliberately overlapping my lines because I think that gives it a little bit of added texture. And that's finished. For my next card, I've got a piece of blue cardstock, and I've cut this to a standard card size, and I'm going to do a sort of a medley of the stamps. So I'm going to use some brushes, some branches and some leaves in the top corner. He's Buster come to see me, maybe you can hear him pit pat pit pat. And I'm going to emboss all of these with white embossing powder, this one here from Simon Says Stamp, and then I'm going to add some snow over the top of everything, and I'm going to emboss it with some Cloud 9 Wow embossing powder, and we're going to see how that looks. This is how it looks with just the white sections heat set. And now I'm going to add the snow effect all over the card. And I'm going to add this silvery embossing powder. This is called Cloud 9, and it will give us a nice shimmery, snowy effect. So don't be scared to overstamp. That's how the stamping looks. I really like that. All I need to do is add a sentiment sitting at the bottom of my little bird table and then mount this on another piece of cardstock. And this is the finished card. I've mounted it onto a piece of the matte silver cardstock from the kit, and I've added this sentiment from the sheet of sentiments, and instead of just cutting it straight across at the ends, I've cut it in to make it look like a little banner. My next card is really simple but really effective. I've embossed two different colours of card, and if you cut the bottom card, you can actually get it to match with the design on the top. So these will match up, and I thought that was rather nice, and I was going to put a wide band across this card, but then I thought it'd be a shame to lose this little detail. So instead I've gone with one of the really thin sentiments that you can cut down from the sheet. And I'm going to put this right across the centre, and that is thin enough to allow me to still see that the tree starts here and it ends here. When this card is cut down and it's backed onto a piece of the matte silver cardstock, it's really effective. It's a very simple card where the sentiment is the most important thing, and it's nice to do that sometimes so that the artwork and the colour and the texture and everything else doesn't get in the way of the sentiment. So a card like this is not just very quick and easy to make, but I think it's very effective as well. My final card today is just a simple fun collage, and I've used various elements from the cardstock, the 6x6 sheets, and I've cut out some of these little pieces, and I've added in some dangly things here and some little houses here. I've put some larger houses in the foreground and a tree and a little bear and a sentiment, and then I've mounted the whole thing onto a piece of green background paper to give a little border. I've done a border on most of my cards today. They just seem to call for it. I don't know, sometimes cards lend themselves to having a little border. On this one, I've managed to give it the effect of being layered by simply gluing everything at the base. So not gluing everything down so it sits completely flat. And this way, as the card sort of flexes and moves around, it gives you a sense of depth without actually adding bulk to the card. And with the little ornaments in the top, I've just glued them at the top, and I've left the little bases, little bottom pieces, sort of free to move around. And I've deliberately offset it. I didn't want everything to be central, so the focal point is actually this little grouping here, and then it's balanced by the ornaments in that top corner. So those are our 5 cards using the Simon Says Stamp November 2021 card kit. and I hope that's given you some inspiration for how you might use your kit. I'll provide all of the links to the kit below the video. They tend to sell out fairly quickly, so it's a good idea to jump on it when you can. And I'm going to say thank you very much for your time as always. Thank you for watching, and until we meet again, stay safe and take care.